Welcome back. Today, we are unpacking what I've identified as 3 pivotal points from Heather Cox Richardson's recent video. Are Republicans ready to turn on Trump? My aim is to guide mindful leadership in the context of current political shifts and recent signals, such as Eric Swalwell's observation that, quote unquote, more than 100 Republicans are ready to throw in the towel on their Trump loyalty, end quote. They highlight real internal pressure and shifting winds. Heather's take helps us to understand what's driving those shifts, and what we'll look at today is what 3 pivotal points mean for everyday leaders like you and me. So Heather's insight point to 3 key dynamics behind any turnover or recalibration in leadership. First of all, discernment and how we listen and respond. Secondly, a nonpartisan, compassionate stance towards democracy and vulnerable communities. And third, a proactive multi-channel storytelling and engagement to mobilize action. So this is precisely why developing mindful leadership is so important right now. The country needs everyday courageous leaders who can navigate complexity with integrity and with care and with practical action. So a quick map of what we'll cover today is we're going to explore these 3 pivotal points that I've pulled out from Heather's video, and then translate each into concrete actions that you can apply today in your family, your community, your workplace, or your small business. So let's dive in. So point number 1, discernment and careful listening as a core leadership discipline. So the gist of what Heather's talking about here, she's emphasizing listening deeply and reading between the lines and avoiding surface level interpretations to understand what's really happening and what people intend. And if we look at what this means for you as an everyday, heroic, mindful leader, it means presence before action. So exercising deep listening, which helps you to be able to discern the true needs and be able to prevent misinterpretation, and most importantly, to act with integrity. Some core values for us as everyday heroic leaders here are courage with discernment, emotional and spiritual depth, boundaries and resilience, and nonpartisanship and inclusivity. So let's look at practical mindful leadership skills. And I'd like to propose 3 quick actions that you could be practicing. Mindful leadership skill. Number 1 is presence first listening. And so you can practice basically just taking 60 seconds of silent listening as a pause before you respond in any conversation. And a way that you can initiate that is you can say to the other person, I'm going to listen deeply before I respond. Tell me more about what you're experiencing. And so this allows a 60-second pause for you to listen deeply before you respond. A second mindful leadership skill that you can practice is clarifying questions in ways that reveal the intent. So you can use questions like, what is most important to you right now? Or you could ask, what outcome are you hoping to achieve? And these are ways that you can uncover the true intent of the person. And this can clear up a lot of miscommunications and also possibly illuminate what's underneath something someone said that maybe disturbed you. Maybe there's something underneath of that that could be really helpful for genuine dialogue. So a third mindful leadership skill is to read between the lines and to check assumptions. So After a discussion, summarize what you heard and invite a correction. So, you could say, if I'm hearing you right, you're concerned about X because of Y. Is that right? And this can be so helpful for improving communication. So, some ideas of how you could present this and integrate this into your community or your work team practice. You could create a one-page discernment checklist for leaders with just sections of intent, impact, and alignment with the values before making decisions. This could have a huge, huge impact on how decisions are made. You can also suggest having a 15-minute weekly practice of reflecting on a recent decision and identify what was learned from listening more deeply. So you could do this practice with yourself at the end of the week. You could do this practice as a team at the end of the week. So I hope that those are some helpful ideas. You can pick and choose something that maybe stands out for you. So let's move on to the second point that I pulled out from Heather's video, nonpartisan, compassionate protection of democracy and vulnerable communities. So just to clear what the gist is of what Heather is talking about here, she's arguing for a nonpartisan, trauma-informed approach to political discourse, highlighting the importance of protecting democratic norms and also supporting vulnerable groups like immigrants and marginalized communities, rather than demeaning them. So what this means for you as an everyday heroic leader is to lead with integrity and care for every person, regardless of politics, to protect democratic norms, and to practice trauma-informed communication. This is what's being called from us. So some related core values for us as heroic leaders, everyday leaders in this time, are integrity and compassionate service and nonpartisanship, and also inclusivity. And something I'm always harping on is emotional and spiritual depth informing our leadership. So let's look at some practical mindful leadership skills. And so again, I'm going to propose to you 3 quick actions that you could play around with. So the mindful leadership skill number 1 is a trauma-informed communication toolkit. And what this can look like is using language that acknowledges harm and avoids dehumanizing framing and centers care for communities. And an example of what you could say is, we're committed to safety, dignity, and inclusion for all people, regardless of viewpoint. It's like a slogan that you can adopt. Mindful leadership skill number 2, a nonpartisan civic engagement playbook. So you can separate policy critique from people and focus on values, evidence, and humane outcomes. That can become the focus. And an example of what you could say is, I'm evaluating ideas by their impact on people's lives, not by party affiliation. Just check in. How does that feel in you? If you were to say, I'm evaluating ideas by their impact on people's lives, not by party affiliation. If that touches you, if that's moving something in you, I'd love it if you would put it in the comments. So mindful leadership skill number 3 is scenarios for ethical decision making. So you could create short scenarios showing how to respond to heated debates with grace and with good boundaries and with service-focused outcomes. So an example of what you could say is, if this issue threatens vulnerable communities, what's the most compassionate, principled response? See what comes from asking that. And how can you present this in your community or your work team practice? You could develop a civil discourse template for conversations and team debates that keep respect and safety and inclusivity at the center. So developing civil discourse templates. You could also organize role play sessions where you practice disagreeing without losing your temper, focusing on service and shared humanity. I believe at this time these role play sessions could be really, really helpful for developing our strength, the muscle, for being able to be the person we want to be in these uncomfortable conversations. So let's get into the final point that I've pulled out. Point number 3, practical multi-channel engagement and storytelling to mobilize everyday leaders. So the gist of what Heather is talking about in her point is she's arguing for proactive multi-channel outreach, documenting events, sharing personal stories, and engaging communities through video and varied platforms to build resilience and collective action. So what this means for you as an everyday heroic leader is meet people where they are with real stories and practical actions, and build resilience and belonging through consistent and multi-platform outreach. Some core values for us as heroic leaders in this time are having practical impact, having presence, having good boundaries, being resilient, nonpartisanship and inclusivity, and of course, compassionate service. So I'd like to again offer 3 quick actions for practical mindful leadership skills. So mindful leadership skill number 1, multi-channel storytelling plan. You could create a simple plan, maybe 1 video, 1 brief written story, and 1 community update per week across 2 or 3 platforms like YouTube or Blue Sky, or even if you have a little email newsletter. And here's an example of what you could say. Here's what we did. This is why it mattered, and how you can get involved. It can be as simple as that. Don't need to make it complicated. Mindful leadership skill number 2, personal storytelling with a service lens. So share personal or community stories that highlight leadership courage and resilience and concrete service outcomes. So inspiring to people. So here's an example of what you could say. This week, I learned that small acts of service create big ripple effects. And then you could just share very briefly, what you did and what happened because of it. So mindful leadership skill number 3, hey, how about a community action playbook? You can provide your viewers with a concrete 3-step action that they could take in the next 48 hours to contribute to a cause or project in their town or in their workplace. So an example of what you could say, here are 3 action steps that you can take today to lead with courage and care. Step 1, step 2, step 3. It can be as simple as that. And so how can you present something like this in your community or your work team practice? You could build a simple content calendar that aligns stories with timely community issues. You could also use short, authentic videos plus longer explainers to reach diverse audiences, and always with a trauma-informed, inclusive lens. So I'm wondering if you can just check in and just check in. You do not need to do all of this. Please don't feel overwhelmed. If you pick one thing out of what I've shared here and give it a try, that is going to be huge for starting to shift a dynamic that's been really uncomfortable for a lot of us for a long time into something that's feeling a lot more aligned with who you are and bringing who you are into this world the way that you want to. So if you would like support, if you would like to deepen your mindful leadership practice and apply today's 3 pivotal points to real world situations, I'd like to invite you to a free event that I'm hosting on October the 28th. We will be exploring practical practices, have live coaching, and a community of heart-centered everyday leaders who are committed to ethical, courageous leadership, the power of this community. So space is limited at the event, so I invite you to click the link in the description below to reserve your seat and begin a 30-day mindful leadership journey that will open new doors for your heart-centered leadership through the weeks ahead. I look forward to seeing you there.